Welcome to the Mizells Show.
An inspiration for a new generation.
Hi, I'm Alanna Mizell, a loving mother of two, a devoted wife to Steven, and an entrepreneur helping women realize their dreams and potential.
And I'm Steven Mizells, caring father of two, a devoted husband to Alanna, and a driving force to help young men prepare for life after college football.
And if that wasn't enough, we're a biracial couple.
She was raised in the North, but I was raised in the South.
The only thing normal about our lives, who am I kidding? It's never normal around here. Join us for the Mizells Show.
Right now. Welcome back to the Mizells Show.
The Mizells Show.
The Mizells Show.
The Mizells Show.
Casually interrupted by Briggs,
Right.
but we're back.
Daddy! And Maple, our dog, is still not comfortable.
Well,
She's
goodness
laying on
gracious.
my blanket. Has to be as close to me as possible.
Always.
Always.
But it's so ironic that when you're not here, like you're at work, she just goes to her crate. Like she has
That's
nothing
because
to do
I'm
with
not
me.
here.
But like,
Her person's not here.
I guess.
Anyway,
Maple.
before we even get rolling too deep into this episode, yesterday there was a shooting at a Nashville Christian.
It was at Covington Presbyterian School, so National Christian School.
Nashville,
CPS.
CPS.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to send out our condolences.
Mm-hmm.
It hits close to home because it's only 3.5 hours away from here
Yeah.
and around the age ranges of our children.
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely hugged our kiddos a little bit tighter last night. So
Yeah.
we just wanted to take a second for that. And not to kind of move on, but we don't want to dwell in that.
Yeah.
Right
Especially
now,
with it just being, yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories that will come out. And I think the biggest thing that we as Americans sadly struggle with right now is almost real versus fake news. Like there's going to be
Yes.
so many stories that will come out around this.
Not
You
hard.
almost have to
Yeah.
wait until 3-4 days in before you actually know what to really rely on and trust, because
Yeah,
it's
because
so
there
much
could be
gets split.
some rapid conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
I also think anytime that something like this comes out, or even Twitch, I think it's important to bring back the conversation of mental health. Mm-hmm. And you own yourself, and you have an obligation to yourself and to society to get help and to reach out. There is help available, from us, from other avenues. Definitely reach out and get the help that you need, or even if you're wondering if you might need help. There's just so much shame brought around that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where we wanted to end on that. But other than that news, Stephen, what have you been listening to or reading? How's that book going?
The book is still there. Still working on it.
Still on the same page we were on. Okay.
Yep. And but there's a new podcast that I've dove into. So first of all, shouts out to the Wondery app. Wondery is Wondery's a podcast, publication. I don't know what you would call them. They put out some really good podcasts. So I just finished.
Are we on there?
We are not on one. If we were on Wondery, we would not have day jobs. Because
okay.
if you're a Wondery, you're
Okay.
You're pretty. Yeah.
Y'all, I've never even heard of it. Stephen's been holding it captive.
Oh, well,
Never
they have
heard of
a podcast called Scamfluencers, and they actually go through different scams that people have kind of scammed people through influencers of social media. So I just finished one called Black Swan, and long story short, this woman was ostracized for her size in the ballet industry. So her and her newer husband decided to create their own ballet company, but turns out they didn't have real money, didn't have funding.
Wow.
The marriage turned dark, and she ended up killing her husband. So yeah.
Well, we don't need to listen to that episode now.
You can listen to it. It's so much more to it, but that was just like a quick run through.
I know what happens at the end.
Well, you got to hear the middle part, like everything else that happens. But it was a good podcast.
Fascinating.
It was a good podcast.
How
Yes.
long are they?
That one was 2 episodes. So 20, 30 minutes each, so about an hour.
Okay, not bad. So that was your big takeaway?
That's my big takeaway. It was a good one.
I love that. So I...
What you been listening to?
Podcast World, I love Girls Gotta Eat.
You love Girls Gotta Eat.
It's just so funny.
You also like the girl and the guy.
The Skinny Confidential.
Skinny Confidential.
I do really like
them.
them.
Yeah.
I think that the Skinny Confidential has a lot of wellness information, and it's a lot to consume. I also listen to a typology podcast, which is all about the Enneagram, and it's helpful as I come in and out of really digging into my Enneagram 3.
Yeah.
Enneagram world is a special place in that I feel like you can't live there all the time because there's just so much inner work to do. So I try to come to it, walk away, come back to it, walk away. But I was able to listen to an Enneagram 3, which is what I am, author. And it just always has fascinating insights into people that have kind of hit rock bottom on their Enneagram 3 and kind of how they've gotten back up and just how they face life, face kids. Like, it just depends on their story.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting to hear Ian Crone talk about it. And Ian Crone was the guy who wrote Road Back to You, kind of the Enneagram books that you guys all that made it popular recently, relatively recently. So that podcast is called Typology. It's super interesting. And then Steven actually got me. I didn't know that there was prequels.
They're prequels, yes.
To some of the Bridgerton books.
Yes. Alanna just stepped her book game up. So Alana's book game is already incredible. But since the last podcast, she now has 5 new books.
I have 6 new books.
Well, one we're going to read together, right?
Yeah.
But for
that's
yourself,
still
it's 5.
For myself, it's 5.
Yeah, so technically 6.
So are we about to see how fast I go through all 5?
No, I just want people to know that Alanna is going to be occupied these next few weeks.
I am going to be occupied. If you have any social events you'd like me to go to, the answer is no.
But it looks like the prequels are pretty easy reads, so Alanna's probably going to knock them out pretty quickly.
I hammer through some Julia Quinn.
She does.
I really do.
But before we jump into topic, what music are you listening to?
Ooh, Chandler, what's his last name?
Chandler Moore?
Yes. They just dropped, Elevation Worship just dropped a new song.
Yes.
That Steven put me on today.
And that song pulled all the heartstrings.
It literally dropped on our anniversary.
It did.
On the 23rd. I love that.
Yes. I'm going to try to find that right quick.
I've actually been listening. I listen a lot to kind of monochrome, I always think monochromatic, like a color scheme, but very somber music while I work.
The song is called More Than Able.
More Than Able. It's fantastic. Go listen to it. But I really like to listen to Taylor Swift's Evermore album. I think that's what it's called. I'm not a huge Swiftie fan, but it's really interesting to listen to kind of while you're working because it kind of stays in the same tone.
Yeah.
And I know most of the words now, but it's not like, you're not like bebopping around kind of thing. And sometimes I like to listen to that while I'm working. Or Steve and I are both huge fans of the Bridgerton soundtrack and the Downton Abbey soundtrack.
Yes.
Because
I have a playlist of Downton Abbey, Bridgerton, all the Downton Abbeys. And then another really good playlist to listen to, or soundtrack to listen to, is The Holiday.
Oh, it's so good.
The Holiday has such good classical.
So good.
What's this called? Scores to it.
It's scores.
So good.
Yes, they are scores. And, but the problem with the Holiday one, well, in Downton, actually all of them are now like this. I know it.
Yeah, you know
so
it.
I'll catch myself, almost commenting, singing the tone. No, singing the tones of the score.
Oh.
Well, the Holiday, yes, I do know what scenes it is. But and some of the Bridgertons I do. Downton I don't because it's so extensive. But I do love those. So that's typically what's in my ears while I'm working.
Speaking of the Holiday DVD was actually one of the first gifts I got you.
Oh, so good.
And this past week, guys, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
10 years. We have
10 years married.
Married for 10 years.
10 years.
That is just crazy.
That is crazy.
That's like we've made it to 5th grade in our marriage. That's crazy.
Why 5th grade?
Because 5th graders are 10 years old.
Oh, you're right. 5th grade.
Yeah. From infant to 5th grade.
We're 5th grade in our marriage. That's
crazy.
That is crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we are celebrating. We celebrated 10, and this year was probably one of the most low-key anniversaries I think we've had, but it was...
I thought you were going to talk about the actual year. Yes, it was one of the most low-key...
It was one of the most challenging years. If you listen to our podcast, you know...
Ever in our lives, yes. By far.
By far.
By far the hardest year we've ever been through.
Yes. What is your very first memory of our marriage?
Of our marriage?
Yeah, like marriage.
So we got married, and right after we got married, Steven couldn't find the rings, so we had to use my engagement ring.
Yep.
And I guess I had your ring, though.
You had my ring.
I had yours.
Yeah.
And Steven and I, go back to his parents' house after we get married.
Not knowing where it was.
While the rest of our guests are going to the reception hall.
Yeah.
And... Fun fact, they were in Steven's pocket the whole time.
Yep, they were. In my pocket the whole time.
That's probably one of my first... that was like the first married moment.
That's the first married moment.
I mean, we did have some pictures after, of course, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our first married moment.
That was the first married moment.
That's so funny.
It was so funny.
That's funny. But what was yours?
My first memory, or first, I don't know. I think... One of my first, like, really memories is after our honeymoon. Mm-hmm. Like, we had already, like, closed on a house. Like, the house is there, but we, believe it or not, guys, after our honeymoon, after paying for a wedding, we just happened to drive through Atlanta. And at this time, there were no IKEAs anywhere in America except, like, these massive cities.
In Memphis.
Well, Memphis and like
there were not many. That's true.
Many.
That's true.
And so, driving from our honeymoon, we... stopped.
We just paid for part of a wedding.
Just paid for part
of a wedding.
Just
bought a house.
Just bought a house.
We just went on a honeymoon.
Just went on a honeymoon.
And Alanna says, let's stop at IKEA.
Let's stop at IKEA. And I was so... The thing I enjoyed about this the most is that it was almost like the pinch me moment that, like, she is my wife and I'm buying items for our house. Mm-hmm. Like, this is our house that we are making. A lamp.
Yep.
I don't...
Those two chairs.
The Pong chairs.
Yeah.
Yes.
However you say that word in
yes.
Swedish. Yeah.
Those two chairs. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
But that was probably one of my first memories. Is not so much should we have been buying that stuff after
that's
all
another
that.
Conversation
Another conversation.
Another day.
But the fact that we were making a home together, and I'm like,
yeah,
this is my wife.
I remember a number of times pretty soon after we got married, we'd be sitting on the couch, and I would just be like, wait, I live here? Like, I live in this house? And I'm married?
Yeah.
There's still times that I look at my kids and I go, I birthed you?
Yeah.
It's like a weird reality.
It is a weird reality because sometimes
I don't really look at you so much and go, I'm married? Like, I'm past that. But I still look at the kids and go, I birthed you?
You're past being married? I still have my pinch me moments.
I do have pinch me moments, but I don't like, it's not like, wait, what?
I feel that way every day about you. I'm like, you are my wife?
No. Not like that. Not in the terms of like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited that I love my husband so much. More of like I'm old enough to be a wife?
You're old enough to be married for 10 years.
What? Yeah.
You did get married at 21 though. You know,
22.
19, 20, how old were you?
It felt like straight out the womb. No. God, I was young. 22.
It was definitely 22. And you still remember this day, the very first time I met your dad, I actually had a conversation about marrying you.
We had been dating for 6-ish months.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah. And I was 21 at the time. Mm-hmm. Was I? Yeah. 21. I was 21. And Steven comes home and asks my dad.
And he didn't bat an eye. He knew I was the one.
He knew it.
Because
you could handle your own with all the sports.
I
think my mom also kind of gave him the clue of, because that summer I was home and I just kept talking about Steven.
Yeah.
And back then I would call Steven Stevie Pants.
Yeah.
Sweet Stevie Pants.
Sweet Stevie Pants.
And I think my mom just like caught on.
Yeah.
She's like, who's this Steven? And then every once in a while, when she'd call, she'd be like, how's Steven? I'm like, oh, Steven's good. And so it just kind of caught on pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I never really had asked my dad to, like, hang out or meet people.
Yeah.
So I think he was like, oh, here it comes.
Here it
but
comes.
I didn't know it was happening then.
No, you didn't know what was happening. I just also felt the need to have at least a preliminary conversation in person. So when I have the call and it's like, hey, I'm going to ask, he already kind of knows.
He knew, yeah.
And so, but yeah, that was...
But, okay, in 10 years, if you were looking back 10 years ago,
Ooh.
What would you say... What's the advice you would give to yourself back then that you've learned from the 10 years that we've married? Like, if you could go back.
Did you know that I sell makeup? Not only do I sell makeup, but the makeup that I sell is 3D makeup, which allows you to highlight and contour your face in a super simple compact. As a mom, I could not survive without my simplified routine. Not only that, but it's exactly what you need. Exactly when you need it, all in one spot. Go ahead and check out Alanna Mizells on Instagram or alannamizells.com to learn more.
If I could go back, I honestly, this might be PG-13 for a lot of people, but I'm going to say it anyway. I would give...
Warning. Turn the podcast off for your kids.
No. At the end of the day, I would tell myself to have more grace with the intimacy of marriage. I think even though I was older than you, I am older than you, I was still very young and immature in terms of what a marriage and wedding look like based on a Netflix series. I felt...
You don't mean just like relational intimacy. You
sexual,
relational...
I think the whole gamut.
The whole gamut. But I think
intimacy.
it's important to discuss that there are different kinds of intimacy.
Yeah, I think there are definitely different kinds of intimacy.
That I don't think either one of us understood 10 years ago.
Oh, not at all.
I would say that neither of us really understood till about a year ago.
About a year ago, I would say that.
Maybe less.
Maybe less.
Truly understood the different parts of intimacy.
Yeah.
And like, I guess there were times that we were emotionally intimate. Of course. I mean, we were married for 10 years.
Yeah.
There's no way you get to 10 years without being emotionally intimate with somebody.
Yeah.
And been through the stuff that we've been through. But to actually be able to put that was something that either one of us needed, and to be able to define what that intimacy was, the emotional intimacy part, I think is a new discovery for us.
Yeah.
New
discovery.
Yeah.
No, and that's something that, we've actually talked about recently is the, it's the real marriage counseling some people get, and then the kind of we live in the South marriage counseling that you get. There's
tell me if you love Jesus counseling, and then there's like master's degree counseling. Yeah. So if I were to go back, which is funny because I was literally just going to say, if I were to go back 10 years ago, I would say find a better counselor earlier. Like, go to therapy. Yeah. Because that allowed me to articulate so many pains, and not to shame myself, but had I started going to therapy and really dug in to find a great therapist that I have now, which she wasn't even doing therapy 10 years ago, so, whatever, God's plan. But if I were to have found one that helped me to articulate it, the trauma that we had been through, I think wouldn't hurt so bad now. Because even the trauma that we went through this fall, and if you haven't listened to that, that's back in December. So you can just pause this, go back to December, you can listen to all about it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sting quite as bad as some of the earlier ones because it was a scar that I've just picked at for years.
Yeah.
And so now I know how to handle emotions. I'm learning how to grieve well or grieve at all.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that a marriage is as healthy as it can be without the articulation of emotions and the feeling of emotions individually. And there was so many years that I just took the emotions that I felt and I just literally dumped them on Steven. And then I was like, all right, and I'm good. Like, you call your friend to vent. Can you believe blah, 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 blah happened? And it makes you feel better, right? But then so many people don't go deal with the emotions didn't go anywhere because you just handed it off to your friend.
Oh, it's still there.
But if your friend is emotionally healthy and mentally healthy enough, they don't carry it for you. In a marriage, in a close relationship, like a marriage or a partnership, you carry it.
You have to carry. I mean, you should carry it. I mean,
within reason, yes. You should carry it in terms of making sure that your spouse or partner is getting the healing that they need.
Yeah.
But carry it in terms of solving the problem is another story.
True.
So for years, over 8 years, just like dumped it on Steven. I was like, all right, I'm good. Steven knows he's going to take care of it and wipe my hands and keep it moving.
And Steven would continue to carry it and try to be I wouldn't say the savior, but I would carry it.
It was the perfect mix of somebody with baggage and another person with baggage, but this goal to heal. Mm-hmm. Like, your baggage was to heal others. And that's what made you feel whole. For me, what made me feel whole was to not feel at all. Yeah. And so it was kind of this perfect mix. And has been for years.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
It's kind of scary, but it's the truth.
True.
It's the truth, and it's also the fact that you can actually talk about it and talk through it. And I think, something that we would tell young couples who are about to get married or go through the facet of it, I would say to this, like,
go through the facet of it. Was that fake marriage?
Go through the facet
of process,
the counseling, the process, and doing all the things that you have to check the box to do. We had a really good marriage counselor, but he was also a friend, and he was also someone
a pastor,
but he was also someone that felt comfortable with us, and we felt comfortable with them. So we danced around a lot of things that we could have.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't dive into.
We were doing, I don't even know, ballroom dancing around things.
Yes.
And I would say, I wish we had gotten marital counseling from a
third party. I mean, something like
from a neutral party.
Yeah, neutral party. Yeah.
That was not marrying us.
They did not know us beforehand.
That didn't know us beforehand. That asked us the hard questions. That taught us how to bring our finances together. That taught us how to have a budget. That, like, yes, our parents needed to do these things, and they did to some extent. Yeah. But it's different when you're bringing two individuals together.
With different backgrounds.
Different ideas. And it's just things that over 10 years we're like, dang, we probably should have thought about that a long time ago. Yeah. And we just breezed through do you want to have kids? Yeah. Like, we both knew we already wanted to have kids. How many? I said 4. Steven said 2. He said 1, maybe 2. That's what Steven said. I said 4. I just kept saying 4. And we have 2. And we're happy. And then a dog. But,
we just breezed through those things. It was
so surface. And we read a book by Tim Keller, Meaning of Marriage. Fantastic book. But Steven and I have even talked about rereading it now 10 years later and just how different the sanctity of marriage is now. Yeah. Dang. So, it's just, y'all, it's a lot. Yeah. What do you feel like over the last 10 years was one of the biggest unseen blessings that God gave us?
One of the unseen blessings that God gave us.
Excluding our children.
Yeah, excluding
that's children. An obvious. That's an obvious. To me, that's a gimme. Yeah. But excluding our kids.
I think one of the unseen blessings, just not to sound like super cliche and like, I don't know, sappy. One of the unseen blessings is the amount of really good people that you brought into our lives in terms of like friends and people in support systems. Now, people have come and gone, but during those seasons, through your connections or my connections, we have met some really good people that have brought us through really difficult, trying times.
And at specific times.
Specific times.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the other day, at our old house, we had a plumbing leak somewhere in the house. I don't know, I forgot where it was. But long story short, I called one of Alanna's college friends' brothers, who we knew but kind of knew, and he just dropped everything and came over on a Sunday and fixed it.
Yeah.
And just little things
just like such a genuine person.
Yes. And
yeah. And we're still friends with them now.
Still friends with them now, yeah.
But like, just those types of people are just so few and far between.
Yeah, and that's why, you look over these 10 years, and again, we've had pockets of people come in and out, and people that we continue to connect with, and others that we don't. But the relationships during the certain seasons that we needed them the most was like, man, like that was just a blessing and refreshing. And you look back on it like, yeah.
Well, and I think what's interesting about what you just said is people talk about the village that it takes to be in marriage together to raise kids. And I think what's really interesting about that, and if you look at it biblically, we're actually doing a full Bible study right now. And when you look at even Sarah and Adam, he had built up a village, but there were villagers that left the village. But it didn't change that he had built the village. And I think it's really important to realize that just because people are coming in and out, or they come in and then they go out and they're no longer in your lives, that doesn't change that they were a factor in a portion of your village.
And I think that is a huge misconception of us nowadays. Because some people hold on to, like, I can't believe I don't talk to anyone, like, whatever you want to call it. But it's like...
Well, in Girls Gotta Eat, their most recent episode, it actually talks about, like, when to end romantic relationships.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing for friendships.
Yeah.
If you were to write a list of boundaries for friends, like, of course, like for me, I'm probably not going to be good friends with somebody who's addicted to heroin or addicted to drugs. Like, that's not beneficial for me in my life.
Yeah.
So, like, we've got those boundaries. I know that's an extreme one, but there are others, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's others. And then you sit there and you look at your list and then you say, okay, does this friend that I'm having a hard time reconnecting with fit into any of these? Is everything good?
Yeah.
And more times than not, I think the answer is my boundaries have changed over time because I've grown and I've adapted. And it's okay that this friend is not in a place to grow and adapt to the direction that I'm going. And
it's okay. It's perfectly okay.
And it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And as much as, so in a romantic partner that you choose to be with for the rest of your life, I feel like the red tape is just something you're not willing to compromise on.
Yeah.
And when you look down at like values, like for us, are they believers? That just was never going to be a compromise.
Yeah.
For a friend, is it going to be easier for me to relate to somebody who is a believer? Absolutely. Is it a deal breaker? No.
Yeah.
But like it would have always been for a romantic partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing, like, is it easier for me to have a friend that has kids or wants to have kids? Yeah. Is it a deal breaker if they don't? No.
No. Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, I think those lines get a little bit blurred, but when you're talking about are they compassionate to my kids? Like, that's really important to me, whether you want kids or not. Do they want to be around my whole family?
Yeah.
Or are they just wanting time with just me?
Yeah.
And I get that there's a time and a place for both. But I think that we think of our village as something that can never move. It's unshakable. And even with our families, like our actual families, so many times we want to cling to these relationships that we had when we were younger with our family members. And that's just, they don't have the emotional bandwidth to be the replacement or be this ideal villager that we thought that they could be.
No, yeah. That
has to be okay.
Yeah, it has to be okay. I think it's another way to look at that perspective. So, what was yours?
I forgot the question.
What is one of the most unseen, I guess, blessings that that God has given us in these 10 years?
I literally totally forgot the question.
Outside of our kids.
And I asked it. That's hysterical.
Do you remember mine? We just talked about it.
Yes,
Okay.
I remember. Okay. I think an unseen blessing, and you're going to be like, what? Is you deciding to go to football. And here's why.
Yeah, I can see that.
Here's why. I think that Steven grew so much in his communication style, in his management style, in his ability to let things go, in his adaptability as a human by himself. Steven grew. I think your career, your professional development grew so much while you were with football. I think that it also, without football, I don't believe that as many doors would have opened for us to communicate more intimately. I don't think I would have gone to therapy. I think that it was the perfect storm of breaking in the midst of a global pandemic that our marriage had to have to survive. I truly believe that. And I think it's also really important to look at blessings that God gives us and not forget that blessings don't come without pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even, I mean, they literally don't. Even like the imagery of Christ doesn't come without pain.
Or the imagery of having a child.
Right, like
pain.
my kids don't come without
the pain you experienced. In
pain
birth.
of delivery, pain of trying to have one, pain
Yeah.
of people asking you when you're going to have kids. I mean, everything that is beautiful has pain. Even like Steven bought me these beautiful yellow tulips.
Yes.
But when you think about the imagery of like a seed in the ground and then rooting, and then it's not for a while that it actually sprouts up. It's that imagery of in the darkness, there's pain and suffering, but there's always light in the morning. And so I think that as much fun as we had, hindsight, there was so much pain that we were running from. There was so much pain I was sprinting from faster than a 100-yard dash.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have ever seen it had you not made the jump to football.
Yeah.
In myself, in you, in
yeah.
my parenting, in who I can let go of in my village, and it be a time and a place. Like, I am a completely different person than I was before you started football.
And I would say the same about me. I would say I'm a completely different person. I don't think I would be where we are today without that blessing. And I think that's something that you mentioned, the pain that came from it, but also the joy that also came from it. It's two sides to both of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that it's definitely an unforeseen, blessing. And it's something that I would say a kind of honorable mention that was something that we don't talk about much. We talked about before as we wrap up. COVID and the shutdown really brought us together, and we didn't know how much we needed that lockdown. Now, granted, that part of the world, and I don't care what side of the fence you're on and you believe it or not believe it, but the world stopped. Like, I don't care what you say. Like, the world stopped. We were inside, and we could only go outside to, like, parks. Like, that happened. And I don't think we knew how much we needed that until it happened.
No. And you guys still, to this day, and probably for forever, one of our family's favorite days ever, and Briggs was too little to remember.
But Adele remembers it.
She does.
Yeah.
Was the Easter lockdown.
Yeah.
It was just one of the most magical days. Mm-hmm. And it feels like it lasted so long.
So long.
But I mean, it's the same number of hours.
Yeah.
But now when we try to like replicate, it was just everybody's emotions were the same. Everybody's vibe was the same. Briggs was behaving. I know that's weird. He was so little.
We actually locked him in the den because he wouldn't leave the room because we were like in our den space at the house, and
because he was just over one.
Just over one.
2?
He was crawling everywhere.
How old was he? Yeah, just over one.
Just over one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Adele was 3 years ago, so 4.
4.
And she still remembers it.
Still remembers it.
It's wild.
But guys, we appreciate you celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
And us just kind of sharing some things and thoughts that we've been through over the 10 years.
And hopefully that gives you some hope to realize, even though it may appear like our 10 years has been easy or been something that we've kind of skated through and just, kind of been able to get through, it is certainly not the case. Not even close.
Yeah.
There has been trying times, but I will say the one thing that has never been an option for either one of us is to stop trying. So if you are thinking about getting married, one of the biggest covenants you can have to each other is to never stop trying.
You heard it from Alanna. We thank you guys. Have a good one.
So if you guys are enjoying this, definitely leave us a review. Give us the feedback. If there's something you guys want us to talk about, reach out to us on our website at themizellsshow.com. There is a contact section. You can put it in there. We would love to hear about it. Or you can always go over to Instagram at The Mizells Show. Also, as always, don't forget to screenshot this episode and just add it to your stories and tag us on Instagram, on Facebook at The Mizells Show. Thanks, guys. Are you loving The Mizells Show? Well, we love you all. And did you know that you can have me and Steven talk to your team or a group of 25 of your friends? All it takes is 25 people showing up on either a Zoom call, a Facebook Live, or really anywhere. Hopefully in person sooner rather than later. But how do you get us? So all you have to do is email themizellsshow@gmail.com, or you can direct message us on Instagram at The Mizells Show.